wonderful Tuesday night, everybody. Chris McDonald with you. We're grateful to have everybody on this Tuesday, the 20th day of May. It's a very eventful night tonight, and but we want to go ahead and get our dear buddy on the line with us here. Jeemes Akers is on the phone with me, and he's was with me last week on the radio show, and I've got him on tonight on a regular McFiles program. Buddy, it's good to talk to you as always. How are you doing? I'm hoping Tennessee is sort of locked in with these storms tonight. I'm south of there, but I tell you, it's a rough night down south. But glad you folks in Ohio are not getting too much of this weather, man. It's good to see you tonight.
Yeah, the weather patterns are something else. We had some family that were in the area of London, Kentucky, and Somerset, and boy, I mean, the those areas got flattened.
They did, buddy. Yeah, they're saying that was an EF4 tornado, winds up to 150 miles an hour, and they say it was a mile long, James. That to me is nothing but the finger of God. I mean, you're talking a mile stretch of 150 mile an hour winds, and I've seen videos of the tornado that the people caught. And I'm not sure which was scarier, the Somerset one or the London. The one in London was so wide, and I mean, it was the night sky was lighting it up, and it was scary. And that thing just, I was watching another video where they were showing the fields in Laurel County that were literally just sucked up into the storm. And that was pretty intriguing stuff to see the fields, how they, were taken up, by this monster. But yeah, we got similar weather tonight. Hopefully nobody will have that kind of situation. We only need one. We don't need too many of those during a year. But as you said, it's just like these patterns have been really weird this year, and it's been a pretty volatile year down south with the severe weather season, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, London was supposed to get it again tonight.
They are
evacuating some of the people that were hit. It's crazy.
Well, I'm glad you're safe, man. Hey, the news over the last 48 hours, and it really started Friday night. I had you on the radio show Friday, and it was not even breaking. We didn't even have this part of the narrative going on. There was a lot of rumblings about Joe Biden's cognitive condition. The media was trying to cover for him, but man, we had one bombshell after the other. The Her tapes were released Friday night, and then we find out over the weekend that he evidently has had cancer for nearly 10 years, and supposedly just got diagnosed with it just last week, which I don't tend to believe that. And again, I've made it clear, Jeemes, on our program that we can pray for Joe Biden, the man. We can we don't rejoice in the fact the man's got prostate cancer. I don't rejoice in the cognitive stuff. I don't think it's very funny. I don't think it's something that we need to mock. I think it's sad, and it's scary at the same time, because you had a man that was running the country. Or at least I'll put it like this: he may not have been running the country himself, but he was the figurehead, and whoever was running the country was running it through him as a puppet. And it does speak of how dangerously close, if we'd have had a major conflict during those 4 years, what may have happened. And we did have, the Afghanistan debacle, these illegals coming over the border, so much corruption in government, this lawfare with the courts. Merrick Garland was one of the most corrupt attorney generals other than Eric Holder, in my opinion. And but I want to get your take on this cancer situation, and more importantly, we're not doctors. I mean, we pray for Joe Biden, but President Trump is really hammering about this auto pen thing, and I think it's worth looking into, because a lot of these executive orders, Jeemes, and things that he supposedly put in motion may not even been put in motion by him. And I'm just curious what you think about that, because I do think there's some legal room for the government to look and say, look, if he wasn't the one doing it, those executive orders don't stand.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. There's some legal ramifications. I don't know how all those will play out, but I'm of a couple minds. As a cancer survivor myself, I empathize with anybody that's going through cancer, and I'm with you. I feel sorry for the man, but I feel more sorry is not the word, but anger at the complicity of the news establishments and the others around the president.
Yes.
That brought down this sort of shroud of secrecy about this man, the most powerful man in the country, and we actually don't know anything about the degree to which he was actively running the government for 4 years.
That's right. That's right. Do you think there is legal room for them to challenge some of those orders? And I'm thinking even about the Supreme Court nominee of Kajani Brown Jackson. I mean, there's rumblings that they're going to look at everything. But where do you, for just a personal opinion, I know me and you're not lawyers, and I know this is probably above our pay grade, but do you feel like that they can look into some of these things and maybe reverse them?
Well, I am a lawyer.
Okay. I'll remember that next time I get caught rooting for the Reds in a Braves outfit and I get thrown in jail with my Atlanta Braves fans. I remember that. Okay.
I watched the Reds tonight, and I'm not sure what I saw could score 5 runs if they were locked in the stadium by themselves and throwing up the ball and hitting it. Oh, it's pitiful. It's pitiful. But no, I'm not sure that has ever been tested in court. Does the president, when his signature is auto-pinned, which is a common practice.
Sorry about that, folks. The phone slipped and we accidentally turned James off. Hang on just a second. Let me see if we can get him back on the phone. Sorry about that. That was my fault, man. The phone slipped and I accidentally cut you off. I heard that we have never tried that in court and then you were gone. Started from there.
Yeah, a person's auto pin is such an accepted part of society that's a really fascinating question. Did Biden, with his cognitive difficulties, did he actually consent to some of these, or were there aides around him that just assumed he would approve all these things and it went forward? That is a very interesting legal question, and I'm not sure it's been addressed. It certainly hasn't been addressed at the presidential level, and so there may be an interesting lawsuit that awaits with all of that.
Yeah, I think so.
You're balancing there an accepted practice in business and other sectors with surely the president has to have some sort of cognitive awareness of what his name is being auto-pinned to. And that's an interesting legal question right there.
Well, and the crazy thing about that, Jeemes, if you was to ask Joe Biden that tonight, he couldn't tell you. In his state that he's in, I'm not so sure he could tell you whether he did it or not. Look, those Hur tapes, they're pretty damning. I mean, look, he was having a hard time telling him his son's name. He was having a hard time when he would ask him, well, do you know what you did with these documents? He said, I'm not sure what I did with them. He said, I don't even know where they're at. He said, I don't know what part of my house they're in or anything. I mean, this was a man that it was like talking to somebody in a nursing home. But the scary thing about it, he wasn't in the nursing home. He was in the White Home. He was in the White House. I mean, he was running the leader of the free world. And, look, I don't even know if you even put him on a witness stand to say, hey, Joe, which of these was you, which was these was somebody else. He couldn't tell you. I don't think he would tell you anyway. But the other interesting thing about that, you bring up an interesting thing is, and the question is being bannered back and forth tonight, is why didn't the aides and the Democrat Party call for the 25th Amendment? I had something today sent to me, and a dear friend, and she asked me, she says, it seems like everything they tried to do with Trump, claim that he was unfit for office mentally, claim Ronnie Jackson was lying all the time about his physical state, questioning whether he was eating at McDonald's was causing him problems, with his mind. And you heard all these shrinks on television all the time was claiming Trump was mentally deranged and he was mentally off and he was not a right thinking kind of man, and they were trying to convince the country that Trump was just this complete bozo and needed to be put in an institution. James, I almost see it as Matthew 7 tonight. It's almost like the very thing they accused Trump of doing. Joe Biden was actually in that state. He was actually in the same state that they were judging Trump and lying about Trump about.
Yeah. There was a massive cover-up, and just that, I think just the outer perimeter of it is being explored right now. This story still has a long way to run, and the press in this country has a lot. The mainstream press has a lot of explaining to do, and they have lost a ton of credibility, and I'm not sure they will ever be able to get it back. So,
well, look, they're turning on their own. Bernie Sanders was out there yesterday with an interview, and he was asked by the reporter, I'm not sure what magazine it was or interviewer, but he said, do you think the Democrats are a threat to democracy more than the Republicans? And Bernie shook his head yes. And I'm sure that's sent a few shockwaves through the DNC. And then you've got the Jake Tapper book that Bill Maher and Jon Stewart, he's no fan of Trump, but he said, look, y'all basically could have told us this for free, and now you're trying to sell me a book telling me that Joe Biden was unfit for office. I'm not going to buy your stupid book. If you'd have done your job, we wouldn't have had to buy your stupid book. Isn't that something?
It is. But it's an interesting question. With the Democrats en masse that applied pressure for the 25th Amendment, under the 25th Amendment, if the choice had been anyone but Kamala Harris.
That's a good point. That's an excellent point.
Interesting question to ask, I think. I'm sure it was discussed in the inner corridors of the power players in the party.
I got to bring this question up. I couldn't have asked you this 4 years ago without getting my channel yanked down, but I feel like that we're in safer waters tonight to ask this. Do you believe, and again, this is an opinion question, and if you don't believe it happened, that's fine. I mean, there's a variety of opinion out there, but with everything that you've learned just in the last 72 hours in Joe Biden's state, because evidently this was already taking place in 2020 when he was sitting in his basement with a mask on and she was sitting in her basement with a mask on. Never campaigned, and then we are supposed to suspend reality and believe that they both got 80 million votes from a populace that was fed up with Trump and they were going to get rid of Trump. They were blaming him for COVID. Do you think this 2020 election was stolen? And let me frame this question in this. If there was forces in D.C. that knew Joe Biden was in this vegetable state and they knew Kamala Harris was a useless, James, if you remember, she wasn't even polling 5%, man, in that Democrat primary. It wasn't like she was real popular in the primary. I mean, even among the Dems, she was like dropped out 2 weeks after it started. And it makes you wonder if this was like a DEI hire, and then there were things that had been planned that Joe would be a puppet and these people would be running behind the scenes. Look, I've heard everything from Susan Rice to Barack Obama, and I don't doubt Barack Obama was not involved in this and pulling strings. But there's other names that I've never heard of that have been coming up here the last couple of days, and it's just speculation. But I do believe that there were forces in D.C. that were willing to do this, and hope to God that Joe didn't conk out. But they didn't count on what they didn't count on was they could not keep him out of the public eye for 4 years. He was the president of the United States, and I think when he got on that debate stage, the gig was up. I think the gig was up, and they couldn't hide it no more. That's just a thought. But I'm curious what you think about 2020.
Well, I go back and forth on it, but when it comes to the elites and the inside the beltway mentality, I have Akers law number one. nothing is as it seems. And I think that law came to play big time in that election. And so, we have a tendency to look at things through the backward mirror based on our circumstances and mindset right now. But in my mind, the reason that Biden was able to get as many votes as he did in 2020 was basically because Trump allowed himself to be placed in the same situation that he won in 2016, and that was Hillary Clinton had so many negatives.
Right.
And it flipped. The media, because he didn't have to get out because of COVID. He didn't have to get out of the basement and campaign, so we couldn't see, how actually weak he was and cognitively challenged he was. The media was able to sell Biden as sort of this moderate, that would bring some sort of sense of stability back to Washington, after these chaotic years of Trump. And so my personal view is, and again, I understand there was never a legal case that was allowed to proceed.
That's the other thing, exactly.
Past the procedural point, So everybody always says, well, he was never able to challenge in any state the results in a court of law. That's because the cases were all thrown out at the procedural level.
So true.
And I don't think there was a single case brought on its merits that challenged the election anywhere. And so, I'm of two minds on it. I think Trump basically lost the election because he had so many negatives.
Yeah.
So I think he lost in 2020. Were there a lot of shenanigans? Did Biden get every one of the graveyard votes? Yes. All of that. The question is, did it rise to the level that it would have turned the election? And so, in those 8 power counties that really make the difference in the presidential election, I'm just not sure it rose to the level that would have pushed him over the top. But that's only my opinion.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. I tend to, I think that you hit sort of the nail on the head, though, that with the way that they censored people that were even questioning the election, and that there was none of these cases. And look, our buddy Brad Johnson, I saw Brad about a month after the election, and he was really ticked at the way that these cases that Giuliani and Sidney Powell and other lawyers brought were so flimsily put together. And it was a joke that what they were trying to do, and convincing us that I heard the famous saying, the Kraken's about to be unleashed, and the Kraken wasn't nothing but a minnow. I mean, it wasn't even a Kraken, it was a minnow. And I think it disillusioned a lot of people. Look, I personally believe there was malfeasance in these states, in these blue states, but proving it, what I think happened, and to prove it, Jeemes, was two different things. But ultimately, in hindsight, and this is what we've got to remember tonight, we can't go back and litigate 2020, even though I do believe we need to get to the bottom of what happened so that it does not happen again. But Trump would not have been as powerful then, even if he had won in 2020, as he is tonight. Now, he made a joke about it today. He said these boogers took the election from me in 2020, so he said, I figured I'd run again and stick it up their backside. He used another word. And he bragged as only Trump can brag. He said, this go around, at least I'll get the Olympics and the World Cup, and I'll be president of the United States when these two events, and I got to see an American Pope get elected, and that's another issue. But it was hilarious, and he was sort of taking it in stride. But I do believe there is something lurking that I think that we're about to see some kind of revelation about 2020. I may be wrong. It's not worth, I don't think we need to dwell on it, but I think it needs to be addressed. Find out what happened with these machines, why these vote totals were adjusted in the middle of the night, and those kind of things, because you cannot let that happen ever again, what happened in 2020. But I do believe that Joe Biden's revelations have given more gasoline to that theory, Jeemes, simply because this did not happen overnight. What we saw with him, this was his state. This has been his state for a while, and Jill Biden knew it. She should be ashamed of herself tonight. The media knew about it, and the Democrat Party knew about it, and they ignored it and lied about it. And now all of a sudden they're coming to Jesus and telling us, oh, y'all can believe us now. We're sorry. And I don't think they're sorry. I think they just got their hand caught in a cookie jar. And I think that their backsides are in a ringer. As my dad used to tell me when I would be in trouble, he said, your backside is in a ringer and I'm the lawnmower. So I think that the lawnmower is the American people tonight, and their backsides are in a ringer. That's all I got to say. Did you, what was your thoughts about Bongino and Cash Patel's interview with Maria Sunday morning? I was not impressed. I'm going to be honest with you. I was very disappointed with some of the answers that they gave, and I don't know if they were just being deliberately vague to hide some big stuff that's coming, and they didn't want to tip their hand. But, one of the things, the infuriating thing was the July 13th assassination of Trump. And she asked Bongino, she said, is there any further revelation coming? He said, we've closed the case. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Brad was screaming. He was on our program last week, and he said, look, we've not even figured the Las Vegas shooting cases yet. He said that case should have never been closed because we still have a million unanswered questions about Las Vegas back in 2017. And you're going to close an assassination attempt on the president's life? This kid came within an inch or two, Jeemes, of killing the 47th president of the United States.
I didn't watch the interview, so I don't know how to respond to that. But Bongino, I thought, just based on the times I've seen him on TV and on news shows and this, that, and the other, I thought he'd be more of a presence than he's been so far. But early he may turn out to be. But if he said that, that's unfortunate. There just seems to be, whether it be in law enforcement or a number of other areas, there just seems to be two playbooks. One when it comes to Trump.
Exactly right.
One when it comes to everybody else.
So true.
If this had been an assassination attempt on Obama, do you think they would have given up until they didn't get to the absolute bottom of the issue?
Without a doubt.
No, that it's just two playbooks. It seems to me are going on here at the same time, and so I have no doubt that within the law enforcement community, they want to close this book rather than keep answering questions about the possibilities of what went on there. And the shame of it is that if you don't start holding these people accountable,
come on,
no, you invite other crazies out there to do the same thing. There's nothing going to happen to them.
I totally agree, brother.
And so for that reason alone, there needs to be some closure to some of these things. But that's my view.
Do you think the Epstein files are in a shredder somewhere? Or do you think we're going to get to the bottom of? And that's the other thing that since you didn't hear the interview, I'll give you a little spoiler alert. Bongino and Patel both had the audacity to look into the camera, and Bongino was trying to convince us strongly that Epstein killed himself. And Jeemes, look, I'm just a South Georgia boy. I'm not a genius by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just an old redneck Southerner. But this redneck has maintained a show for 7.5 years, so I guess people like rednecks. But when he said that, I laughed. I said, well, I wanted to, if I'd have been interviewing him, I said, well, can you explain the 20-minute blip in the camera when the cameras went dark, the guards went missing during the 20 minutes that he took a sheet, hung it from the rafters, and hung himself and nearly broke his neck, but you're telling us that you got no video of when it actually happened, and now you're telling us that there's 100% sure proof that he killed himself. I mean, for goodness sake, I just want him to be honest with us. If somebody's gotten those files and destroyed them, just tell us. Tell us. And I'm just sort of sick of seeing Pam Bondi on MSNBC or NBC or ABC or Fox every other night. I don't want to hear from her. I want her to do her job. These interviews, I think these people, and I love President Trump and I love his cabinet, but it seems that every time we go on this carousel, you get people in there that's more concerned about that media exposure than they are doing their jobs. And I just think the American public tonight is screaming to the top of our lungs, do your job, tell us the truth, stop hiding crap. We can handle it. We're Americans. You know, we can handle it.
Well, I think the honest truth, in my view, is that the government's been hiding things from the public for a long, long time. And I think one of the things that the new administration was determined to do was to be as transparent, because that was totally absent in the previous administration, to be as totally transparent with the media as they can. And so they're overreacting. When I was a kid, I used to play a lot of sports. My dad was a heck of an athlete, and so he coached our summer ball teams. Well, he was twice as hard on me as everybody else, and so I think that is an all too natural phenomenon that the previous administration wasn't transparent. That we're going to be as transparent as possible, and so they're overcompensating in my view.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
There are other situations where the administration appointees are holding their own. Did you see the Senate hearings involving Rubio?
Oh, we're going to play some clips after this, after we let you go. Yeah, Rubio did a beatdown of Van Hollen. In fact, I think that Christopher Van Hollen is actually looking for pieces of his seat. I'm talking about his natural backside in D.C. tonight, and I'm still not sure that he's found them all, because that was pretty much handed to him today. And Rubio handed him it to a lot of the Dems. It wasn't just him. He handed it to the press. And I tell you, of all the people that Trump's picked, I like Marco Rubio. I do. I think he has kicked some butt and taken names and not blinking and not doing it. And God bless his heart for doing it. Listen, I've got to move this on a little bit because I've got some other things. But I do want to ask you, let's go to international affairs. We talked about this on the radio Friday. And we'll talk about it tonight a little bit. You were fairly, how was your rating 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst? How would you rate the trip to the three Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE with Trump? What would you grade him on those? His approval rating shot up tonight to 55%. That's amazing. that he's at that approval rate, and considering what he went through the first term, I mean, I think people are catching on to the Trump train, and I think that people are understanding he's fighting for us. And I thought he did an excellent job. I know there's a lot of distrust out there, I think it goes to what you just said. There was so much corruption, and there's been so much corruption through the years, so many lies. We can't believe a thing the media tells us. We can't believe a thing these politicians can tell us. And I think that it's so refreshing to see a president, Jeemes, that he's doing what he said he would do. You can like it. You ain't got to like what he's doing, but you got to respect the man's ability to try. He's trying to do what's right by our nation and bring jobs back here and bring America back from this abyss.
He is trying, and he is like the Energizer Bunny compared to what we saw
That's
4
true.
years. I mean, the difference is just mind-boggling. If you're going to rate the trip to the Middle East, it depends on basically what you think the priorities were. If the priorities for Trump's Middle East trip was to get economic financing to fund our competition with China, especially when it comes to AI and technology, then I think you have to give that trip an A+. And if you don't do that, it's because there's nothing Trump could do to sway your mind that he could do anything positive. But so in economic terms, it was a success. In terms of positioning America for the technological future, which I write a ton about.
Yes, you do.
As you know, then I thought it was a very successful trip. If you're talking about the political dynamic of American-Israeli relations in the region, then you're not going to give it a C. Certainly, because Trump completely shut out the Israelis in any facet of things, and the only Saudi Arabia will come on board with us, to bring peace to Gaza and this, that, and the other. All of those types of discussions were held in the elevators, out of the public scene. So we don't know what Trump accomplished, if anything, in those sorts of areas.
Let me ask you this before you go on, before I forget my question.
Okay.
Do you believe that he is going to push, and I'm talking about President Trump? I heard tonight, I was doing some headlines, and I think it is France, Macron, is going to be bringing a resolution to the UN in the next few days or weeks that they are going to push again after all this failure. You would think that the nations of the world would get the message that a Palestinian state is not going to work in Israel, James. But these Abrahamic Accords, what I remember of them in 2016 and 2017 was even Trump envisioned a Palestinian state. And I heard something he said the other day that caught my attention. And I guess my question to you is, let me just say it like this. I don't think it was a personal snub of Israel. However, I think that some of the language that he was saying was to play both sides. And what I've seen in history and what I've seen with these kind of things, you can't play both sides. And I'm not saying that we need to be ugly to the Arabs. We need the Arabs on board to make sure that Israel, she's got to have friends other than the United States in this world. And right now, there ain't too many. And maybe that's what his goal was in this. But I will tell you this, they're not, if Trump, the very thing that's hindering the peace process, it has been for 35 years plus, is this insistence of a Palestinian state. And it's not going to happen, and it's going to bring God's judgment on this country, because I do not believe that Jesus Christ is coming back to a Palestinian Jerusalem. He's coming back to the eternal capital of the Jews. And that's just the way I look at it. And And I do not believe that that's the way to peace, because the Arab world, they've already carved Israel into three pieces, into the Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel's own land. You can't give them much more, James. They're not going to have anything. They're going to be back before the Holocaust without having a homeland if this keeps up.
Yeah. Well, there are two dynamics going on in my mind, and this is just Jeemes Akers talking. And it certainly doesn't represent any viewpoint of anybody else but me. But you have the spiritual dynamic, which you and I place a priority on.
Correct.
And very, very few people in Washington do.
Agreed.
Then you have another one that is going to emerge, Chris. I'm going to put on my prophetic at you. Over the next 10 years or so, one of the possible unifying elements that could bring a measure of peace in the Middle East is in this area of AI and the leading edge of technology. Israel has carved out a place for it. The Saudis and the Qataris want a place at that table. That may be a common ground looking forward a decade that'll bring developments that we can't see right now, which will in turn usher in a number of other spiritual developments that are in the last book.
Right.
And so, you know, I sort of see that as a possibility. It's a ways off, but there is the possibility there.
Okay.
I think Trump may have tapped into that, and in my opinion, he did it without really knowing what he was doing. You know, he was just there to ensure U.S. companies and the American flag mattered again in the region, and to raise money, most of all, for all of these various AI and other types of projects. And at that he was successful. And I think he may have laid a groundwork for advances in that area, and I'm saying, of course, I'm not sure I'll be here to watch the developments, but over the next 10 years, that may be
interesting.
When the history books are written in the future by my grandchildren, that may be the most important outcome of this trip of all, and we can't see it because there are just too many other things that are clogging our viewpoints right now.
That's fair.
That's way out there. I don't know of anybody that's writing about that.
Except Jeemes Akers. Jeemes Akers is, I know some guy named Jeemes Akers that's writing about that. It's pretty good stuff.
Well, let me put on a shameless plug.
Go ahead and shameless plug your book. We got to let you go here in a minute, but shamelessly plug your book. Go ahead.
I have three. I have a trilogy that's set 20 to 30 years in the future, which I try to warn my grandchildren of the world that's coming. It's at once a cute little romance and another a medical mystery and a historical narrative. And I had fun writing the book. You can go to Jeemes Akers, all lowercase, all one word, JeemesAkersAkers.com.
Okay.
And you can navigate to a link that can get you to those ordering those books.
Now, in this dystopian view of the future, does Chris McDonald have hair, and is he still ugly? I'm just curious. I don't know if you saw anything into the future.
I just always have him wearing a cowboy hat.
Well, that That will always be there. That will always. Where's my cowboy hat tonight? I can't find it here. I got to go out and get one. Anyway, but yeah, I don't have it on tonight. I'm slipping. Hey, buddy, listen, I'd keep you forever. I'm going to get you back on maybe later this week, and I'm definitely going to get you on the radio. We didn't get to talk about Call Me tonight. I'm going to probably pull you back in here maybe Thursday night or Friday, if we're on Friday, but Thursday night especially, because I got some other things to ask you about. Ukraine, Russia may be on the brink of a ceasefire, and Trump is, I think, deserves a lot of credit for that because he's engaged the situation, unlike the previous administration that just let him kill each other. But I want to get your thoughts on that maybe later this week. But listen, I got a guest coming up right behind you here.
I got you.
Final thoughts.
Erdogan twisting the finger of Macron, it's a different sort of power play on the international scene. Well, I mean, it's like everything is going crazy as we watch this world. When we talk about politics, there is a group against Trump that he can never do anything to placate them.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
For one, I know there are critics out there, but I think the guy's doing a good job. He's doing everything he promised to do during the election.
Yeah.
And I continue to say it could have been far worse if the alternative candidate had won the election. That is my starting point for everything.
Absolutely.
And I think the environment would have been much worse for Christian believers if Kamala Harris had won the election, and maybe at the end of the day that matters the most.
Totally agree.
He's still in control. He's still on his throne. He's got it figured out from the beginning, the end from the beginning, and place your trust in Jesus Christ and don't worry about what's happening.
It's great advice, my friend. God bless you, buddy. I'll be in touch with you, okay, later this week. Have a great night. Thank you for coming on this Tuesday night as always. Always do a great job when you're here. Always great stuff tonight again.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Always a pleasure talking to you and your listeners, my friend.
Go Reds and take the Braves with you. So that's my motto this year. See you later, bro. Take care. Bless you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Jeemes Akers, everybody. Put some power in that house. He's such a good guy. He is absolutely such a good guy. And let's see here. Let me find Leslie's number because we need to get her on here. We missed her last time because I didn't get her in time before she went to bed. We're not going to do that tonight. Leslie Millwee's coming up here, folks. Let's see if she'll answer the phone. And
hello,
Leslie Millwee, Chris McDonald. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
Good. We've got you live on air tonight. I'm sorry about the other night. We had the show go a little bit longer, but we're glad to see you doing better tonight, and we're always grateful to have you. How are you on this Tuesday night?
I am wonderful. I am just taking in every day all the good, all the bad, all the crazy.
Yeah.
How about you?
I don't think we have a thing to talk about tonight. You know, nothing's happened in the country over the last week or two since I've talked to you last. It's just been a boring month here in America. We can't. I tell you, it's getting to the point when I go to bed at night, I hold my breath, waking up the next morning because it's like everything changes. And then even from the morning, because we do a radio show at 2 every day, and even from the time I'm on the radio from 2 to 3 till to the night show, I mean, the world changes. I mean, it's just insane the speed of that which is happening in our country. But we had Jeemes Akers on just before you. He was with you the night of the election. And I will tell you, I meant to tell James this too. Y'all did the best job. You, Magdalene, him. I think we had one. Oh, I thought we had the best election coverage we've ever had. That was our third election because we started in 2018, so it was 2020, the midterms of 22 and then 24. But I tell you, that election coverage that night was, even my brother don't compliment me for anything. I mean, I could have a tux on, and he would tell me he'd have find something wrong that I looked like he would complain about something. But he even complimented the election coverage that night, and I was like, all right, what kind of money you want? You're saying that because you want something. But anyway, no, it's good to see you tonight, buddy. I do want to get your take on this Biden situation. You know, that is the news right now. Look, you can't escape it. The news cycle is ablaze, Leslie. And, you know, me and you have talked so many times about this puppet government that was in place for 4 years. And, you know, for people that don't know who Leslie Millwee is, Leslie has had a few personal brush-ups with the Clintons. And we'll maybe get her on one night to rehash that, not tonight, because most of you know her story. But, you know, I've always wondered if Hillary and Bill were involved in this, but I'm leaning toward more Obama and Susan Rice and that wing, because the Obamas and the Clintons don't even like each other. And it just seems that Hillary she has got to stick her nose in everything. And
she's just such a bitter, angry, white, liberal, elderly, ugly woman. God, I hate to harp on that, but I mean, she's against having children.
Yes.
You know, that's evil. That's part of the evil right-wing psycho. And it's amazing to me. I just watched that clip again, and you know, she just will not go away. You know that, you know, Trump lives rent-free in her head, which I love. So she's the one stuck with Clinton. I'm sure they're a miserable couple, and we have to take that and just settle for that right now.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to put that in perspective, because some people may not have heard the clip, what she was talking about. She was basically trashing. Of course, she's never been pro-life at all. She's always been a big, rabid. I mean, this is the lady that claims Margaret Sanger was the greatest voice of the 20th century, who wanted blacks to kill their babies because she felt like blacks weren't worthy of living. But this not having children, to me, it's almost like a type of an abortion, because it's almost like, you know, infertility. If you deliberately not have children, there's no generation ahead of us, Leslie. And I mean, this lady is so evil and wicked. It is a deep state, globalist, elitist view that they just want to destroy this population. And Clinton is right up there with all of them. But put it in perspective what she was trying to say, because some people don't know what we're talking about.
Well, I think it was May 1st or around there, she went on some tour. I can't even remember who she was talking to, but she was asked about Trump's remarks. And I think Elon Musk was part of that, too.
Yes, it was Elon.
And Vance, you know, all of them were touting family, and first she insulted Musk by, I think she used the word breeding at one point, and then she said, you know, that children, you know, people shouldn't have children, and she's glad people finally woke up and they're not, basically not having conservative children and raising that. I'm sure with the border being shut now, I mean, their base is threatened. I think they think of it in long term. Anyway, I do. That what they're saying is, we want to try to eradicate all the righties, all the people that lean conservative, all the people. And she literally made fun of Christian values.
Yes.
She said, these men and the patriarchy that they represent, they want to keep women down. They want women to be pregnant and barefoot in the kitchen, preparing the meals. They want you to be a slave. I mean, she used those words. It's crazy. I
think she's got us confused with what she wants Bill to be. Barefoot, pregnant, and a slave. I think she's got us mixed up with Bill for some reason. I don't, you know, I mean, I'm just saying, you know, I mean, Bill in that dress, do you think there's a little reverse roll there, you know? I mean, I'm just saying, you know, that's a weird couple now. I'm telling you, they're just weird.
Yeah, they never went together. I knew them when they were relatively newly married within a couple of years. And I remember the first time I saw her, and of course I knew him, I thought, what an absolutely bizarro couple they are. What an ill-matched, and of course at the time I didn't get the connection and their kind of pact that I think they have with each other to further each other's career and take turns and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, she basically dissed family values. I think she alluded to Christianity causing a lot of this, and I just want to say, yeah, all you good people that have a moral compass and go to church, please have children.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you a question. Our mutual friend Juanita, and you both, and I think we can throw several other names in there that have waited 40 plus years for justice. I don't think it was ever going to come, while Biden was in office.
No.
Do you have any optimism now that there seems to be a new sheriff in town that Trump has got any inkling to? Because, I mean, this Russia hoax thing, I think they're about to unleash what. And Hillary's fingerprints are all over this stuff. And this email
She's
server.
The creator.
Yeah. Do you think there's any hope of maybe that with this current administration, that the Clintons might see justice on this side of the earth? Is there any hope of that in circles?
Well, I think if I look at the big picture, I say, well, the world's kind of burning down. Do we take care of our border first? Yes,
That's true.
Did that. Do we need to really worry about the economy and trade and tariffs and fairness for the U.S. for the first time, restoring values? All those things are important. I think my thing is terribly important, and I want justice. But I'm one person, and I can't speak for Juanita and Kathleen, and
right.
I think Paula Jones to some extent got some satisfaction from her settlement. But, I think that I kind of resigned myself to the fact that I'm probably just going to have to await God's wrath
Eternal.
on these evil people, yes, for what they've done. But I think they're coming out of the woodwork. This James Comey thing, I mean, talk about his smugness and his, downplaying. I'd like to see him in jail.
I was going to ask you about him tonight. That was an absolute... I feel like it's a threat. I think it's just as bad as what the kid tried to do in July of last year, even though he didn't pull a gun. But you had people out there chanting. We've got a video we played last night of people in New York that was going 86-47, 86-47, 86-47.
These are sheep. These people, we lack critical thinking in the world today. I came to that realization. I've had conversations with really all age groups, but it's true especially on the left. There are some people on the right that do that as well, but I'd say the vast majority are on the left. They are literally sheep. You tell them something, they never investigate it, they never get a second opinion, they never look and dive themselves. And I think you and I are different. We don't understand that because of being in the fields that we've been in and reporting and looking for facts and uncovering information. But the average person, especially Democrat, they are just happy to have you tell them what they need to know. And I think that's going to be the downfall of our country. Now, the election really made me very hopeful because if you have a huge population of Black, Hispanic, Asian, white men, the only, I think, demographic that Trump really didn't win was the older white liberals.
That's true.
Women.
That's true.
And there's a few men you could scatter in there, but I mean, that's a huge, those that find themselves to be academically superior, they're overeducated, they have a master's degree in underwater basket weaving that they'll never use, but, they can tell you the way life truly is. So, and they're angry. And what Megyn Kelly did, you heard the Jake.
Oh, I heard. We're going to play a clip from it. She sort of handed him his lunch tonight, and Jake had that look that I'm not so sure between him and Christopher Van Hollen. I think both of them are looking for their backsides on the street corner tonight because Megyn handed him his and Rubio handed Van Hollen his today. But absolutely, I'm with you on that. And goodness gracious, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was delighted because she was clear yesterday on her show that she was a friend of Jake Tapper's, and I'm thinking, how much is she really going to go after them? She really did.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think she asked all the good questions. I don't think there's any question whatsoever. Anyone that has half a brain and eyeballs, they can see what this media did. I mean, the mainstream media. They were not only complicit, they covered things up. They knew. You would have to be, blind not to see that. So I don't buy this Jake Tapper stuff that he had no idea. He had an inside view, and so Alex Thompson was in the room. Now, granted, Biden wasn't in the room, but, the fact that he would literally go missing for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I know, exactly.
You don't do that and have any kind of standard of understanding what's not going on, what is going on and cover it up. So it's like the Nicole Wallaces and those people too. And what about our friend Joe Scarborough saying that a year ago, he's the best version of Biden we've ever had.
I know. Well, the media, I think, has destroyed their credibility was on thin ice anyway. And I find it absolutely, it's offensive to me. It's hypocritical. It's like they think we're stupid out here in the American public. So now they're going to grovel back to us and act like, okay, guys, we missed it. We're sorry. Because, Leslie, people were censored. People were called every name in the book that questioned this narrative. People were called out in the media. There was ugly debates, ugly things being said about conservatives during that time. And we were telling people that Joe Biden wasn't here. We were telling people that somebody was...
for platforms.
Yeah.
I know. Thank God for you and for the Megyn Kellys and the Tucker Carlsons and all those that try to speak the truth, and they had to do it on an alternative media source. And, I don't think that could have happened 10 years ago.
It couldn't have.
So in that regard, we were very lucky that people said, this is not right. This is, how can they lie to us? And
they can lie to us.
Other alternatives. Yeah. Tapper, what a joke. I will not buy his book. I will not give him a penny of my money.
I mean, he's not going to, it was like Bill Maher said, he said, you could have told us this for free, and now you're charging us money to use something to tell us something now that y'all should have been telling us for free for 2 years. I mean, why would we go out and buy your stupid book? Hey, I got a question for you.
Checkers moving behind with the Bidens because this cancer diagnosis coming out. For one thing, that's bull. He's had cancer since he was probably vice president.
Absolutely. At least 10 years.
So that's crap. And now, did it get worse and it's been treated in the past? I don't know. But I do know I've been in the medical industry many, many years. I know these things, and one of the things I know is that prostate cancer, if caught 10 years before, you don't have a score where you're off the charts and you're literally at end stage, non-curable cancer at this point.
That's very true.
It's not possible.
That's a great point.
It's not possible. So we know he's had it. Who knew? Has he been treated? I think these things will come out. I do. I think there will be some revelations on that. I think they were going to prop him up, and the whole ploy, looking at the 30,000 feet view, I think he thought he could win again. He was going to run. He was going to quietly bow out by this time of the year, install Kamala as president, and ride off into the sunset as a hero. I really believe that's
probably what the plan was. Do you have any thought on who was running the country while he was... it was a puppet government, Leslie. When you get down to it, what we've learned over the last 72 hours is we had a puppet government, a shadow government, in place in the good old United States for the first time in our history. And I know the Q crazies out there will say, "Oh no, and they'll put all this Q crap out there like a bunch of morons," and that they are. And I hate to use that word too, but I just got to call a spade a spade. But I'm talking about a true blue shadow government where you had a man that was not capable to even sign documents and was working on auto pen. And then you have to ask the question, okay, if it wasn't Joe Biden in charge, who? And I'm just curious what your thought is, who maybe was behind the scenes with him.
I thought for a while it was Susan Rice and...
I did too.
Those people. But let me tell you, after listening to Alex Thompson today with Jake Tapper, he made some really great suggestions, and he threw out names, and I do not remember all the names, but one of them was Jill Biden's press secretary and her assistant. The other were the famous Emanuel brothers. Susan Rice's name came up. A couple of chiefs of staffs. We know KJP couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time, so she was just the relayer of news and information to press conferences. But, I mean, it's obvious that I think there was a whole team. I think there were probably, I don't know, it sounded like about 10 or 12 people. They all kind of had their specialties. This one dealt with the healthcare issues. This one dealt with immigration. This one with policy. And that makes perfect sense when I think about it. There's a rumor I was reading, or somebody was telling me about Lloyd Austin trying for almost 3 months to talk to Biden and couldn't get through. And finally walked over to the White House and says, "I have to have a meeting." They could not reach him, supposedly Biden, during the Afghanistan and all of that, the withdrawal. So I think he probably has been that way. That was 2021. Let's be honest. He was horrible when he was running.
Totally agree. Well, and I was told James Akers before you tonight, she was polling 5%. Leslie, it wasn't like she was popular in the Democrat circles. They didn't want Kamala. And, James was basically made a great point. That's one of the reasons I believe that they held on to Biden and didn't 25th Amendment because they feared, because if you can't just go pick another president, if you 25th Amendment, that's why you have a vice president. She's going to take over if they would have done that. And I think that's one of the reasons they didn't do it. And I just think that all these revelations are like a big puzzle. But my bigger picture question to you is, where does Trump go with this? Does Trump benefit the country by pursuing this auto pen thing and seeing if he can reverse some of these orders? Do we let Joe ride out in the sunset? Because Trump, I look, body language, and you know how Trump is. Trump just speaks his mind, and that's what I love about him. I don't get offended by him. I don't get offended by his tweets. His brashness, his being a New Yorker, his being out there is he's my kind of guy. We Southerners are the same way. The only difference in us and Trump, Trump's suits cost more than mine, and we Southerners will talk to you the same way. We'll just serve you tea with our sarcasm and get in your cage. We'll just be a lot nicer to you. But we're gonna sit here and get in your cage and get in your face. We just do it a little different, in a different manner. We're just a bunch of rednecks about it. But I'm getting the vibe from him that he is not going to let this lie. And I think that there is going to be some fireworks over the next several weeks about this. I do. What's your thoughts on that?
I hope so. I thought it was a good sign when they arrested or LaMonica McIver.
Yes, we're going to ask you about that. Yeah.
I thought that was a good indication. I think Pam Bondi, I think Marco Rubio, I think all of those guys are out for bear, and I'm happy because it's damn time that it happened. But how far they can go, and they're going to have to pick their battles. Where do you prosecute the James Comey thing?
Absolutely, you do. You better.
You know, I know.
Absolutely.
I mean, I agree. I think, you know, do you go after Hillary on the Russiagate? Do you go? You know, do you go back over and go after McCabe for his lying? And
let me interject something real quick here. I'm going to let you continue that thought, but let me interject something about what you're asking. The answer to all those questions are yes, and I'll tell you why. And I'll piggyback off something James said. If you don't address it, and if you don't do it, Leslie, it's going to happen again. Because these people will eventually, because this country we're just nuts in America. We will put these Democrats back in power at some point in the future. We will. And when they get back in power, they will do the exact same thing again unless you remove the actors that did it the first time and send a message. This is unacceptable behavior in a republic. We're not a democracy. We're a republic. This Monica chick that thinks she can push around ICE agents and slam them to the ground, and then she tells people it was the ICE agents that did it. She needs to be taught a lesson that you don't break into ICE facilities. There was a protocol she could have followed. It was not. She was not there. She was not there to do her job. She was there to do exactly what happened, and she got her blank put in. Going to have her blank put in jail. And I hope they throw the freaking book at her, and I hope they throw the freaking book at the New York mayor. And I hope they throw the freaking book at Comey. He needs to be in handcuffs tonight, sleeping in a cell. And his wife, for lying basically to the FBI and lying to the Secret Service about they just walked upon the seashell and she was the one that told him to take a picture, needs to be with him. And they need to go after Hillary. They need to go after McCabe. They need to go after Comey. They need to go after Hunter Biden. They need to go after the people that were basically trashing. Look, Jack Smith's in trouble tonight. I'm hearing Fannie Willis is in trouble tonight. I'm hearing Letitia James. And I think that there needs to be a house cleaning, because if you don't clean the house, this is not about revenge. If you don't clean the house, Leslie, they will do this crap again, because they will say, we got away with it. And until we stop letting people get away with this stuff on the other side, because I think James made a great point too tonight. It's like there's a standard for Trump that people can do this to Trump and it's okay. They would have never dreamed of doing this kind of crap to Barack Obama. There would have been such an outcry. They wouldn't have even dreamed of doing it to Joe Biden, as nutty and as vegetable-like as he was. They would have never done this to a Democrat president. They wouldn't have done it to Bill Clinton. They wouldn't have done it to Bill Clinton. Nobody would have done it. They only do it to Republicans, but they hate Trump in a special. There's a recipe of Trump derangement syndrome that this left has cooked up, and they're all in.
Well, I think everything goes back to the risk of corruption, and we know for a fact that it goes all the way back. They were talking today about the presidencies, Roosevelt and Wilson, and these people that were literally merely vegetables who had a stroke, and how their wives were the puppet masters behind and everything. And I think that's not unlike what's happened here. We didn't hear about that, and we didn't have the technology, to follow it. But you're right. Now that we have it, what do you do with all that info? And I have to believe Trump wants justice. I hope he just prosecutes the tarnation out of Letitia James for her evilness. Fannie Willis too. Talk about two scumball. They are the worst of the worst. They are the low
scumballs.
They are the low fruit. And I hope that if nothing else, I hope they lose their job and they lose their livelihood. And I don't say that lightly. I'm not real. I will cancel culture you by not ever buying your product. I'm not a beer drinker, but there would never, ever be a Bud Light in my home again. There's just certain things that you make those choices. I know they've tried to redeem themselves now, but what they you know, are they that ignorant? Who do they think their customers are?
Well,
and it's the same, you know, it's crazy.
But let me say what you just said. I'm not disagreeing with you, but they're not ignorant. No, they know exactly who their customers are. And I'm going to tell you something else about the left tonight. The media knows what it's doing tonight. They're trying to manipulate this narrative. They've gotten their hands caught in this cookie jar about Joe Biden. And again, they're groveling and they're saying, I'm sorry. And Jake's out there trying to run defense. And, you know, we all screwed up and all this stuff. But deep down in their heart, Leslie, they're not sorry. Deep down in their heart, they are not sorry. The media is not sorry. They are still lying. They are liars. They lie. If they open their mouth, you know, it's what Jesus said about Satan. He said he was a liar from the beginning, and all he can do is lie. And if he says something, it is a lie. And that spirit has overtaken this country, and you've got politicians that do it. You've got media types that do it. You've got religious figures that do it. And you've got people that do it in front of a camera every day, and they don't have any conscience about it because they don't care. They care about nothing but money and influence and power, and they will say anything they have to say to get back in power. That's what's going on tonight. My concern is the gullibility of the American public. And I shared a story last night with my dear friend Eddie Cole, and we were talking about 2020. And Eddie and I, we don't see quite eye to eye, and he's a good guy. Me and him are best friends. I mean, he helps me with music sometimes. And I remember asking him 4 years ago, "You think the election was stolen?" And he said, "Absolutely not." And Eddie wasn't even a right, left winger or a real extreme guy. And he looked at me. He said, "Listen," and he admitted to me. He said, "I'm not a political expert." And he said, "I know that there was some crazy stuff that was done at some of these voting polls in the blue states." But he said, "Just remember this, what I told you." He said, "Just put it back in file 13, put it back in a file for a rainy day." He said, "Don't you ever underestimate the stupidity of the American voter."
Yeah.
And Leslie, when you get down to it, ultimately, we only have ourselves to blame for the leaders over us. I mean, when you get down to it, it's America's, it's us. It's not we are a republic. And if we allow these people to keep doing what they're doing to us, they will keep doing it until we, the people, have had enough of it. Until we've had enough of it.
It is. And we've let the George Soroses of this world, him especially, they have set the stage for this failure about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, by infiltrating our education system, both college and even middle school, and, you know, bringing in this LGBTQ books for 10-year-olds and 5-year-olds. All of these things were orchestrated at a local level. We just had an election here in my town. We have about 40,000 people in my town. Do you know, for a state representative position, we had a little over 1,000 people voted. Isn't that mind-blowing?
It is mind-blowing. It's crazy. Well, that's what part of the problem is. People don't want to see that. See, we've always used these crutches, and I'm not saying, again, that elections are not stolen. I'm not that naive. I'm not naive to believe there wasn't crap going on. But I think that the revelation of what happened with Joe Biden over the last 72 hours has confirmed every concern that we on the right had about that 2020 election, and I will go to my grave believing that it was stolen. And we're running out of time, so I've got to ask you some quick fire questions, and I want to get your opinion.
Okay.
Jeffrey Epstein, are we going to see the truth come out eventually about him? And if so, arrest, or what was your take on Bongino and Patel's interview? I was underwhelmed Sunday morning by them.
Yeah, not so much. It's like they're backtracking.
That's
the best way I can put it. Now, why is that? I mean, you just have to ask yourself, is it too many famous people on both sides? I think you have to take the sweet with the sour. I'm sorry. I hope it's not that. But I don't know. I don't think it'll ever come out. I don't. Maybe in 20 years it will, when all the players are gone. But
Well, in 20 years, Chris will be doing his show in a wheelchair, so you'll have to well, when the Zoom call happens, I'm gonna have to pull the camera down about three inches from the ground because I'll be in a wheelchair, Millwee. I don't know if that's gonna matter then.
We'll have to put our teeth in before we go on the air, but yeah.
But let me ask you this on a serious note about Epstein. I was shocked. I mean, I really was shocked at some of the answers that Patel and him gave. And one of the most shocking things that I heard Dan Bongino say, and I said, Dan, I like you, but you got to be kidding me, that he was out there putting it out there. He did not believe Epstein didn't kill himself. He thinks Epstein actually committed suicide, and I'm not saying that he didn't. I think he was assisted. But Leslie, you cannot escape this fact that camera in that jail went down for 20 minutes. There's no video of him actually committing the act, and the guards just all of a sudden coincidentally walked away from their post and didn't hear nothing in his cell, and then they come back and the man's hanging from the freaking roof and the ceiling of his cell, and you're going to sit here and look us in the eye? We're not that dumb.
No way. And why doesn't he want that information out? I don't think there's any question. I know this has been brought up a lot more lately, maybe just because of the Epstein thing coming up, and the P. Diddy thing. They're just both vile. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he's going to ever be held accountable. I don't. It's just like the Clintons. You know their fingers are in that pie. I don't know why they're still being protected. I guess people at such high levels have been involved that has to be the reasoning. Why else? And they're protected by Satan too.
Yes, they are.
Matters.
I want to. We're low on time tonight. I want you to come back next week if you can. I want to talk to you about something we've never really discussed, the two of us on the show. I want to deal with this anti-Semitism that has encompassed the country, buddy, and it's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting, and I want to get your take on it. The UK is gone. They have cut trade off tonight with Israel over the Gaza situation. They can kiss their arses goodbye. I'll use the British word. That way I can get away with saying arse, because that's the British word. But they can kiss their arses goodbye. If they do that and they cut trade off, they're killing themselves. It's not Israel that's going to suffer. Israel will find a trading partner. The UK is bringing judgment on itself by doing it. And it's not just the UK. There are these demonstrations. We had Israel. There was an Israel parade, Israel Day parade in New York on Sunday. The Jews couldn't even walk down the streets of New York without the jihadists getting in there and causing all sorts of things. And I've seen some of the most vile comments coming from different people online. But what has sickened me more than anything, Leslie, me and you are people of faith. That's one thing we've always been have common ground about. We are people of faith. We understand what the Bible says about Israel. But the the more sickening thing is the church. And I would like to talk with you about that sometimes, and maybe next week get you on after Memorial Day and talk to you about this again, because I feel like it's a worthy discussion, and we're going to deal with it maybe a little bit on the radio tomorrow. I know you work during the day, but any day you're not working, let me know. I'll bring you on the radio and introduce you to our radio audience, all three of them.
Well, I don't believe that. I'm sure it's awesome. And no, that's those are two very vital things. And the one thing that I think we're going to have to fix sooner than later, that really should be at the top of the mountain, the heap, to get done besides the economy, we've got to do something about these air traffic controllers and this.
Oh, that's so true. We had talked about that. This New York thing. They had a fourth. Do you realize they had a fourth malfunction yesterday? There was a fourth time the radio went down this time. It wasn't the radar, but now the radio went down, and something's got to be. I lay that on Pete Buttigieg. People are blaming Sean Duffy for that. Duffy he's not been in office but three months. So give me a break. It ain't Sean Duffy's issue. It's Pete Buttigieg's problem. He sat there and let 4 years go by, and they didn't upgrade the airplane things, and of course they're going to be outdated, and of course the equipment's bad, but they were too busy propping Joe up like some bad Weekend at Bernie sequel. So, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm really concerned about that, and I think that's going to be incumbent on us, because we're going to have a major airline mishap, a crash or something like that, and it will go in Trump's lap and obviously Sean Duffy's, and I think we better, and that's not really something you can fix in a month. You know, you probably can't fix it in 3 years, but we darn sure better start, because that would be catastrophic.
Well, to your point, they blamed Trump tonight. Schumer was out there blaming Trump for the Mexican boat hitting the Brooklyn Bridge. They were blaming Trump for that. They're blaming Trump for, I think if the sky, I'm telling you, if it rained, they would blame Trump for too much rain. If there's a drought, they're going to blame him for the drought. They are blaming him for everything. I just think that he is more powerful tonight than he could have ever been in 2020. And it's all Romans 8:28. I know that there were a lot of questions about 2020. It's in hindsight. I think that there needs to be some questions answered about 2020. I don't think we need to let it go, but I don't think we need to dwell on it either. We can't bring it back. I think we need to be grateful that we're in this place, that Trump has got the authority. He's got a great cabinet. I don't like all of them, but I think for the most part, he's got a group of good people around him. He's got the Senate with him. He's got the House. If these Republicans would get off their arses and do something, and that's another discussion. But I think that he has got enough power and the willpower. And this thing about Trump being a lame duck, he's not a lame duck. He knows that he has pretty much got 4 years to let it all hang out. He's got nobody to please. He don't have to worry about re-election. He's not running for office again. He's going to retire. He's going to enjoy the Olympics, as he said tonight. He's going to enjoy the World Cup. And as he said, he's going to stick it up there something. And I'll just let that word go without saying it. But he said that today. He said, look, they stole it from me in 2020. So I said, I figured I'd run again and stick it up their blanks. And he said, I get to look at the Olympics this year. I'm the president during the Olympics and the World Cup. So it worked out better for me. So
I love it. And, you know, I think as angry as we get, none of this stuff would have been exposed. Maybe even it would have been exposed on Joe and everything else that's happened. But we wouldn't know as much, and we need Trump now like this country's never needed leadership like this before. And I think God is giving us a second chance now. Whether you can fight the evil to get all these things accomplished, I don't know. But I do believe this was meant to be. God wanted Trump in this place, and maybe he wanted Biden for 4 years so all of this corruption could be, you know, uncovered, and we could find out more about how bad the government's really been for 50 or 60 years.
And I think it was spiritual. I think that he wanted America to see how bad it could get if we don't turn ourselves back to him. Because what we experienced under Joe Biden, Leslie, if this country don't come back to God, again, these people will eventually take over this government again, eventually. And I don't want to be here when they do. I just don't, but I'll leave it at that. Buddy, I wish I could keep you for 6 hours. We've already been.
Worries.
Listen, no, thank you for coming on tonight. You're such
welcome.
and bless you. Pleasure. Oh, we're going to get you back on soon, and thank you for being with me. Good stuff tonight, as always. I'm glad you're doing better. And we'll see you soon. We're going to be in Tulsa in September. I'll give you the dates, and hopefully you can.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we're finding a place, and we'll see you then. And God bless you, and we love you. And God, you take
too.
care.
Love you too.
Leslie, good night. Leslie Millwee, everybody. Great to see her tonight. 2 good people we just had on this show. You don't get much better than that, and we are absolutely grateful for her. Now, we have got some serious weather coming through East Tennessee. We're a little late. We've been going right at an hour and 29 minutes, so we're going to have to cut a lot of stuff out that I wanted to do tonight. Just 1 or 2 videos is all I want to play, and then we're going to take a few questions tonight. We will be back here Thursday night, and we're going to take all your questions. Here's Marco Rubio today. You got to love the Secretary of State. This is him handling a liberal Dem called Chris Van Hollen.
In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come, you're going to see who you went to.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
Secretary Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court of the United States because he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge in the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy.
That's right. Thank you, Marco.
I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job.
Yes. 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 That's how you handle liberals. That's how you handle liberals who have margaritas with gangbangers and wife beaters and human traffickers. I salute Marco. We're going to talk about that tomorrow on the radio. 2 o'clock. Here is Megyn Kelly with Jake tonight. This is her beatdown of Jake Tapper, and after this, we'll take a few questions.
You didn't ask him about it. You didn't follow up on the fact that he was falling up the stairs, that he was losing his train of thought regularly, that he was slurring, that he was incomprehensible, that he was getting lost on the White House lawn. You sat right across from him and you asked none of that, notwithstanding the fact that he had promised you he would be fully transparent about his health issues.
That's true, but I did ask him about his age and the...
You asked him about his age, Jake? Are you kidding me? This man couldn't put 2 sentences together. He was talking to fairy tale being somewhere. I don't know what he was talking to people sometimes. He was talking in the dark, talking in the air, roaming around stages, not sure where he was at. And you asked him about his age?
Fact that the American people had concluded that even though he said whenever anybody brought up the subject of his age, watch me. And I said, yes, they're watching you and they are concerned that you were too old for this job.
You know as well as I do that there's a way of, you can say, hey, there's this poll on your age, or you could say, you just forgot that Jackie Walorski was dead. You asked where she was moments after watching a videotape tribute to her. You lowered the flags at the White House after she died. This happened 13 days before you sat with him. There is a way of pressing a man like that on the actual infirmities to bring it home to him and to the audience, and you didn't do it.
That's correct, I didn't. And like I said, I feel humility about my coverage.
He does not feel humility about his coverage. Don't believe that crap. Folks, I'm telling you tonight, I'm going to save this for Thursday night. We're running out of time tonight. Let me just leave you with this. If you got a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'll answer it real quick. We'll take about 10 minutes. This is all we got. Listen to me. Do not believe this, I'm sorry, tier of the press. Do not believe this, oops, tier of the lamestream media. Do not buy into the fact that they're remorseful one bit as to what they did in hiding Joe Biden's cognitive decline. The Democrats are not sorry for it. The media is not sorry for it. Joe Biden is not sorry for it. Jill Biden is not sorry for it. They would have kept this charade up, and if he would have got reelected, this charade would have went on till Jesus comes, until the country pretty much was gone. They wouldn't have cared. I don't have nothing but disgust for Jake Tapper. I always tell you the same thing. I tell you about everybody. I pray for Jake's soul. It's not a personal thing, but I am disgusted by his network. I'm disgusted by him, and I think this is far more offensive, him putting it in a book and trying to sell a book over this, than the actual situation that he was involved in, hiding this man's and not reporting correctly. And there's video, and we played it. He was scolding Laura Trump in 22 when she was bringing this up on his program, and he was mocking her, and he was mocking conservatives. He was mocking anybody that brought up Joe Biden's mental state. Joe Scarborough was mocking people. Van Jones was mocking people. Dan or Axelrod, David Axelrod, was mocking people. The Nothing But Crap Network was mocking conservatives. And see what they were doing. I want to say it again tonight. They were questioning Trump's mental ability all the time. Ronnie Jackson would get up before him, Trump's physician, and say Trump's fine. They would make a big deal about him eating hamburgers. They'd make a big deal about this dossier that claimed he was having sexual escapades over in Europe. And I can't even say what the dossier was claiming. It's a little adult, and this is a family show. It was vulgar. And no, they had all sorts of innuendo and accusation and insinuation about Trump's mental state all the time. And I find it rich tonight. I find it rich that the same judgment that they passed on Trump and they falsely accused Trump of has come home to roost. And there's a Bible lesson in that, as my Bible students hear me say often on the morning Bible studies, of which we'll have one tomorrow. You better be careful how you accuse somebody of something. You better be careful how you throw slander out and you throw innuendo out and half-truths out. You better be careful how you judge somebody. You better be careful how you lie about somebody. Because I'm going to tell you something, folks, it's coming home to roost. And not only is it going to come home to roost, but the same thing that you judge somebody else for is going to be your judgment. You're literally declaring judgment on yourself by what you're doing. That's exactly what the media's done. And that's the judgment that they're reaping tonight. They're not sorry that they hid Joe Biden's cognitive decline from you, because they knew to have told you the truth, Trump may have won in 2020. What they didn't know, they were too stupid to know. They were too stupid to realize that what they were doing, they were playing right into the hands of 24 and making him more powerful a president tonight than, again, he would have ever been in 2020. Trump played these people like a fiddle. And Trump's the one that's coming out smelling like a rose. They're not sorry that they did it. They're sorry they got caught. They're sorry that Joe Biden got on that debate stage in the summer of 24, and it was revealed immediately to the world where he was at, and it was not a good place. They're upset at that tonight. Jake Tapper could care less about this country. To sell a book, to apologize for something that he should have been covering 2 years ago for free, give me a break. So excuse Chris McDonald if I don't shed crocodile tears and play a fiddle for Jake Tapper tonight, or Van Jones, or David Axelrod. We played their clip on the radio today, if you heard us. And we're going to play more tomorrow. We're going to talk about this more Thursday night. Carla Nicole will be with me Thursday night. And Mark White will be with me tomorrow night at 6. We'll be Faith's show tomorrow night, so we may not have a news show. But if you want to listen to the news tomorrow, tune into the radio, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, kstartalkradio.com, every day. And we will discuss this there. You won't see my beautiful face, but you'll at least hear my southern redneck voice. All right, you got 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes. Folks, please, questions. If you got questions. If you got questions on topic. On topic. Dennis says the reason they hate Trump so much is because he stands with Jesus Christ and all these Dems serve Satan. Dennis, I'd be careful about that. I'm not saying that the Dems don't serve Satan. There's some Republicans that serve him too. Trump is not a perfect man. This has nothing ultimately to do with Trump himself, the man. There's a lot of Dems that are engaged in that, but I would not make it a party thing. I would not make it a party thing. The Republicans are as bad, just as bad. Look, the whole system, Dennis, buddy, the whole system's corrupt. Republicans and Democrats alike. There's going to be, and I hate to say this so bluntly tonight, there's going to be as many Republicans in hell as there are Democrats. Trust me on that. It has nothing to do with the party. I know that Trump is not a perfect Christian. I will agree with your assessment that he stands with Christ, and I think he's trying to rule this nation as righteously as he can. But never, never make the mistake of believing that Trump's perfect, and I know you don't. But this has, I think, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. There's deep hatred for him for more reasons than that. I see your point, but it's not a party thing. It's not a party thing. It's not a party thing, buddy. Alrighty. He says, can they pull the license in these line radio? Well, as far as pulling the license, you have to prove malice, Dennis. There's a law in the books. It's a constitution, absence of malice, freedom of the press. Press can say what they want to do. I mean, they can be sued. The FCC would have to do that. It's not an executive decision. Trump can't just arbitrarily go in there and pull their license. I mean, they can require them to, Carolyn Levitt does a great job during the day. I mean, if there's something they need to correct, she requires them to correct it. And that's why you got slander laws on the books. You start saying stuff that ain't true, you sue the just like he did George Stephanopoulos and CBS. CBS is begging him to take $20 million, and the CBS president resigned today over it. She don't like what they're doing, giving in to Trump. Well, I'll tell you what, they better pay up because they're going to lose that case, and it's going to be $60 million if they go to the jury. I wouldn't take it. If I was Trump, I wouldn't take it. They need to learn a lesson. That's how you deal with a lying press. You can't pull the license, though, unless they're putting the country in danger. And I would say some of this stuff is, but it's the FCC that would have to do that, not Trump. The FCC handles that. But absence of malice, I mean, they can pretty much say what they want to say. It's, we're a free country. It's like I said last night, folks. We're free. Freedom of speech is what makes America go. What makes the world go around. We're free to say stuff. We ain't all got to agree with everybody what everybody says because everybody don't. But it is what it is. People don't agree with everything I say. So anyway, Jenny says it seems their struggle is to remain in power and will lie at all costs. They are refusing to lose power. Jenny, that is true, and that's the whole purpose. And again, like I told Leslie tonight, these people will eventually seize power again. And look, you got to remember, folks, this is not just a struggle here in America. I talk to Cleo a lot, and Australia is facing this struggle. The UK is facing this struggle. Canada is facing this struggle. This Carney guy, he's out there thumbing his nose at Trump right now. He's thumbing his nose. And you Canadians, I love you all, but you're about to become a communist state. Tried to tell you. And Pierre Poilievre, instead of him keeping his mouth shut about Trump, he started trashing Trump and trashing America, and he lost. Tried to tell you. Nobody listened. And now you got Carney, and he's out there basically predicting it's going to be they're going to quench free speech in Canada. And the UK is gone. The UK is just gone. But these people will try to take power again. They will. Stephen, your question about the press being sued for covering up Biden's health condition, that's a good question. I'm not sure the answer to that. I don't know if they can be sued, but I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be some shakeups at some networks. I think what I see happening, they're going to turn on each other. And just like Bernie's turning on the Democrat Party tonight. See, the Dem Party and the press, Steve, worked hand in hand with this. Look, the press only did what it was told to do by the Biden machine. And that's what's coming out, too, that this cover-up was at the highest levels of our government. Jill Biden, Leo Terrell tonight, who is part of the Trump administration, he's out there insinuating that Jill Biden should be charged with elder abuse. I mean, think about that. I mean, he went there, and I know we've talked about it, and I've heard people say this on our show, that it was elder abuse. Well, Leo Terrell put it out there tonight that the Department of Justice should look into that. And, I think they can be sued if what they did is harming in the country, and I think there would be a pretty good case that what they did harm the country. But there has to be damages, and you got to have a damaged party. So the government would have to say that damaged us, like Trump. And look, he won a huge settlement with George Stephanopoulos over this stuff, and he won a buttload of money from CBS. Trump's going to be a billionaire just on winning lawsuits against the media. And Devin Nunes has won some big cases against them. So, I think your answer to your question is yes, you can. I'm not sure how it would go, but yeah, you can sue the media. They can be sued. They can be sued, buddy. Good to see you tonight. Good to see you tonight, man. Bear, I'll agree, it's time for accountability. It is time for accountability. Corey Aguilar, good to see you. Since Comer came out and basically accused the staffers for the auto pen, but he was actually running the country, I want to see some big name arrests. Corey, we all do. And I think that is going to be and I'm just going to say it, as much as we want that, I wouldn't hold my breath. I just think we're going to be very disappointed when all this washes up on shore. And I may be wrong. I may be wrong. I may be getting on this program and saying, well, I was wrong about this, guys. So-and-so's been arrested. Your point is an excellent point, because Comer did say that he knows who they were. There was no names released. And I think they need to be released. At the very least, we need to know. At the very least, we need to know who they were. What's going to be done about it? That's another whole ball of wax. What should be done about it is everything that they did that was not authorized by Joe Biden, they did it on their own, should be ruled null and void, because that is not executive action. That's an insurrection. That's an insurrection. And it's rebellion in our government. And I've been hearing constitutional lawyers argue this over the last few weeks, especially over the weekend. Could Johnny J. Brown, this individual that's on the Supreme Court, don't even know what a woman is? I mean, there's a possibility that her appointment to the Supreme Court could be in jeopardy. Wouldn't that be peachy? Wouldn't that be peachy? Wouldn't it be peachy that Trump gets to pick another justice? That way, that would offset Comey Barrett and Roberts' stupidity. But anyway, good question, my friend. And yes, I think we all want big name arrests, but I don't know if we're going to get it. I'm not sure if we're going to get it. I wish we could, but we got to ask ourselves a question. If the arrests do nothing to further the country, and you still leave people in place that are going to do it again, what's it accomplished? To pick out a few people here or there and say, okay, we got to rest on this, and that's good, and not have a complete cleaning of the swamp, top to bottom, that will do us no good. It will make us feel good, but it won't help the country. It won't help the country. And all nations are dealing with this right now. Israel's dealing with it. And we're going to talk about Israel more this week. Tonight was Leslie Millwee and James Akers night. And I hope you enjoyed both of them. Folks, it's late. May the Lord bless you. We're grateful for you. Good to see Gabriella. Gabrielle, hope to see you guys up in Long Island. We're going to be coming to the Big Apple June 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we hope that you will be with us. And we thank you for that, and thank you, Cleo, for the hide. That was a absolutely ugly comment to make, whoever that person made that about Joe Biden. We do not wish that on anybody. If you're wishing him to go there, you probably are going to be headed right there with him, so I'll just leave it at that. Chris hadn't had a snarky moment in a while, so I'll go out with a snark. We rednecks Southerners can be catty and snarky with the best of them. As I said, we the same way as the Yankees are. We just do it to you with tea and a smile. May the Lord bless you tonight, and hope you enjoyed the show. Did you enjoy the show? Put some fire in that house. Thank you to James Akers and Leslie Millwee. It's late. May the Lord bless you. Prayers for our folks in Tennessee. We got bad weather coming through. We'll talk about it tomorrow. You didn't have a chance to update the weather, but you folks, please be safe in the Tennessee Valley tonight. And prayers for McDonald North. That's all I got to say. We got some serious weather coming right at us, and hopefully it will go through the night without incident. But may the Lord bless you guys. Be safe up there in Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, northern Alabama, Kentucky again, and going into Virginia, West Virginia later tonight. I'll see you back here in the morning on the Bible study. See you at 6 tomorrow with Mark White, and then the Wednesday night midweek fellowship at 8 tomorrow night, and then we'll be back with the news Thursday. Don't forget, 2 o'clock tomorrow. If you want to listen to the news tomorrow, 2 o'clock to 3, K-Star Talk Radio. We'll be on the air. We'll talk about a lot of this tomorrow. May the Lord bless you out there. Put some fire in that house, and have a good night, everybody. Be blessed.